So you want to know the 7 habits of highly successful cloud engineers? Well, you've come to the right place because I've been in tech for a decade. And I started as an apprentice, but I worked my way up through the corporate trenches, got my AWS certifications, led major cloud migrations for Fortune 500 companies, and now, well, I'm running my own cloud security business. Oh, and of course, I've grown this YouTube channel to over 100,000 subscribers. So yeah, you could say I've been around the block a few times. Now, along my journey, I started noticing these patterns. Like there are these habits, these ways of working that really set the top cloud engineers apart. Now, I'm not talking about the stuff that you learn in school. This is the real deal. The kind of knowledge you only get from being in the industry for a very long time. Making mistakes, figuring things out the hard way, experience. The thing is, most cloud engineers, they are kind of stuck. And if you're watching this video, that's probably you. You're doing okay, but you're not really killing it. But don't worry, because you're about 20 minutes away from changing that. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what it takes to level up your skills. We're talking about the habits that can seriously boost your impact and that will naturally grow your income too. And stick around because I'm going to share one habit that completely changed everything for me. It's probably not what you're expecting, but trust me, it's a game changer. So if you're serious about making it big in cloud engineering, then this video is for you. Before we get started, check out my weekly cloud newsletter where I share free resources, tutorials, bootcamps, and so much more helping you with your cloud move. Let's get into it. Okay, so our first habit that makes highly successful cloud engineers is continuous learning. And let's talk about Tom Brady for a second. He gets drafted as 199th overall in 2000. Most people would have settled, right? Not Tom Brady. He becomes one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history. How? By never stopping learning. Even after multiple Super Bowl wins, Tom Brady is still working with throwing coaches, studying game film, tweaking his diet. He once said that I just love working hard. I love being part of a team. I love working towards a common goal. Now, this isn't just about sports. Let's look at Elon Musk. He has revolutionized multiple industries: PayPal, Tesla, SpaceX. How? By constantly learning. Elon Musk embraces engineering textbooks like they are nothing. Now, in the business world, Jeff Bezos built Amazon on this principle. He calls it day one thinking. Always operate like you're still a hungry startup, no matter how big that you get. And this is exactly what you also need in cloud engineering, because AWS dropped over 1,800 new features and services in 2020 alone. That's 4 years ago. That's 5 new things to learn every single day. And that's just one provider. But here is the thing. This isn't a burden. This is opportunity, because every new feature is a chance for you to add value, to solve problems in ways that others can't. Now, Malcolm Gladwell talks about a 10,000 hour rule in his book, Outliers. The idea that it takes about 10,000 hours of practice to become world-class in any field. The exact number might be debatable, but the principle is solid. Consistent, deliberate practice leads to mastery. So how do you make continuous learning a habit? Here is what you need to do. Firstly, set aside a dedicated time each day for learning, even if it's just 30 minutes a day. And at this point, I'm still spending time learning every single day. Make this a non-negotiable. Secondly, follow industry experts on platforms like Twitter and LinkedIn to stay up to date with the latest knowledge. Then you want to put your learning into practice by incorporating new technologies into your own personal projects, because hands-on experience is invaluable. Now, to cement your understanding, teach what you learn by blogging, creating videos, or even mentoring others. And by integrating these practices in your routine, you'll build a sustainable habit of continuous learning and growth. Now remember, in this tech world, what you know is everything. It's what sets you apart. It's what makes you valuable. So keep sharpening that blade. Now let me tell you about NASA's Curiosity rover. In 2012, this thing had to land on Mars. We're talking millions of miles away. No room for error. But how did they pull it off? Automation. The entire landing sequence, the 7 minutes of terror, was automated. It had to be. The rover was too far for real-time control. Every possible scenario had to be anticipated and programmed in advance. And this is the power of automation. It's what allows us to achieve the impossible. And this is the second habit that makes highly successful cloud engineers adopt. They embrace automation. In our world, automation is just as crucial. It's not just about making your life easier. It's about scaling your impact beyond what's humanly possible. Think about Netflix. They are running thousands of servers, serving millions of users. You think they are doing that all manually? No way. They've got tools that automate the entire deployment process, their infrastructure, their monitoring. Or look at how Amazon operates its massive e-commerce platform. They are using automated systems for everything, from inventory management to pricing, because it's how they stay ahead of the competition. And here is how you can make automation a habit. You first start small by identifying one repetitive task that you perform daily and automating it. This could be something as simple as spinning up a new EC2 instance or setting up an S3 bucket. You can just create an automation script for it. Next, you want to focus on learning infrastructure as code tools such as Terraform or CloudFormation or even the AWS CDK. Choose one and work towards mastering it. Then you want to set up CI/CD pipelines using tools like Jenkins, GitLab CI, or GitHub Actions, making these your go-to resources for streamlining your development process. And finally, as I just mentioned, but is crucial, you must commit to continuous learning, as automation tools and practices are constantly evolving. By following these steps, you'll gradually build a robust automation skill set, improving your efficiency and effectiveness in cloud engineering environments. Now let me tell you with a story that will make your skin crawl. Back in 2011, Sony PlayStation Network got hacked. And I'm not talking about some small-time data leak. This was a full-blown catastrophe. Personal data of 77 million users. We're talking credit card info, passwords, addresses, the whole 9 yards. Sony had to shut down their entire network for 23 days. Imagine that, one of the biggest gaming platforms in the world, dead in the water for over 3 weeks. Imagine this happening to Netflix and not being able to Netflix and chill for 3 weeks. The cost was over 171 million, and that's just the direct cost. The damage to their reputation, that's something you can't really put a price tag on. Now, millions of gamers lost their trust in Sony. Some never came back. And you might be thinking, how the hell did this happen? Well, it's simple. They weren't taking security seriously enough. They had outdated software running on their servers. User data wasn't encrypted properly. Passwords were weak. It was like they left the front door wide open and put up a sign saying hackers are welcome here. And that brings me on to another habit of highly successful cloud engineers. And what they do is they adopt a security first mindset. Now in the cloud, security isn't just some add-on feature that you slap on at the end. And it's not just the job of some separate security team. It's your job every single day with every line of code that you write, every configuration that you set. You need to be thinking about security. I remember when I first started out in this cloud world, man, I was all about the features that my clients needed. Security, that was for someone else to worry about, which reminds me of when I was working for this startup and helping them set up their own cloud infrastructure. We're of course moving fast, building features left and right to please our business users. Now we thought that we were killing it, and then boom, data breach. A simple misconfiguration in our cloud setup, and suddenly all of our customer data was out there for anyone to see. And that was my wake-up call. I realized that in cloud, security isn't just important, it is everything. One small slip up can bring down your entire system, your entire business. So how do you develop a security first mindset? Let me break it down for you. Firstly, you want to adopt a mindset that assumes you're always under attack, a little bit of paranoia. Recognize that in the cloud, your systems are likely being probed for weaknesses by bots around the clock. Then next, you want to start applying the principle of least privilege. only grant access to components that absolutely need it. Treating permissions like keys to your house, the fewer distributed, the safer you are. After that, you should prioritize encryption for all data, whether at rest or in transit. Think of encryption as the essential armor for all of your information. And then of course, you want to implement multi-factor authentication wherever possible to add an extra layer of security beyond just passwords. And this one goes without saying, but keep all your systems up to date, applying security patches to eliminate your vulnerabilities that hackers often exploit in outdated systems. And it's equally important to conduct security audits to proactively identify and address vulnerabilities before any malicious actors can exploit them. It's almost a little bit like checking your locks before bedtime, because in the cloud, one small slip up can take down your entire system. And it's not just about protecting data, it's about protecting your business, your reputation, and your future. Now, the next habit that makes highly successful cloud engineers is those who have mastered communication. And now you might be sitting there thinking, I'm a cloud engineer, not a TED speaker. Why do I need to master communication? Well, let me hit you with a story that will change your mind real quick. Back in 1999, NASA lost $125 million Mars Climate Orbiter. Why? Well, because one engineering team used metric units whilst another one used English units. A simple communication breakdown led to the spacecraft coming too close to Mars and basically disintegrating because it was this far from its atmosphere. Now imagine that. Some of the smartest people on the planet working on cutting-edge technology, and they messed up because they couldn't get on the same page about which units to use. That, my friends, is the power of communication, or in their case, the lack of it. This is why communication is so important in any field, but also, of course, our own cloud field. You might build the most brilliant, groundbreaking cloud system in the world. If you don't know how to explain it or how it works and why it matters, it's worthless. It's like having a Ferrari, but not knowing how to drive it. What is the point? So how can you level up your communication skills? Let me break it down for you. When you're communicating with complex technical concepts, firstly, you need to know your audience. A CEO needs different information than a fellow cloud engineer. So tailor your message accordingly to who you're talking to. It's like choosing the right tool for the job. Secondly, you want to use analogies to make complex ideas more accessible. Compare technical concepts to everyday things that anyone basically understands. Next, always focus on impact. Don't just explain what you're doing. Emphasize why it matters. How will it affect the business? How will it make people's lives easier? Then learn to create clear and simple diagrams. Sometimes a picture really is worth 1,000 words. A well-designed visual can explain a complex system more effectively than an hour-long presentation. Now, you also want to be practicing active listening. Communication is a two-way street. Listen to understand, not just to respond, because you might uncover crucial information that changes your entire approach. Don't forget to also write clear documentation, because in the future you might come back to it and you'll thank yourself, and so will your teammates. Good communication is like a map. It helps everyone navigate the system that you've designed and built. Now, in an ideal world, or rather a perfect world, failure wouldn't exist. Everything that you do it right the first time. No learning curve, no feedback required, just perfection. But we both know that's not how the world works, which brings me on to our next habit of highly successful cloud engineers: embracing failure. Let's talk about Michael Jordan for a second, the greatest basketball player of all time. You know what he said about failure? Here it is, in his own words. I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've almost lost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I failed over and over and over again in my life, and that's why I succeed. So the guy that most people refer to as the GOAT, which is the greatest of all time, is openly talking about his failures. He's not hiding them. He's not ashamed of them. He's embracing them as a critical part of his success. And this is the mindset that you also need in cloud engineering. Every missed shot, every lost game, every failure is all just preparation for your next success. Even for myself, I remember early on in my career, I was somewhat afraid of failure. You know, when you're coming up, the last thing that you want to do is make mistakes, because you need to set a good impression, and that fear of making mistakes was somewhat crippling. I would triple check everything, afraid to push my code live in case something went wrong. I wasn't growing, I wasn't innovating, I was just existing. Then I had this manager who changed my whole perspective. Every time something went wrong, instead of getting mad, he would say, great, what did we learn? And straight away, something clicked for me. And I saw the value in this approach. Because one time we had this major outage. I got a call from my manager at like 2 a.m. on a Saturday that our entire system went down and we needed to fix it. Millions in revenue was being lost every single second. Angry customers and of course the bosses, they weren't happy. Mind you, at that point, working weekends wasn't even part of my jobs. Anyway, instead of pointing fingers, the team that I work for, we dug deep. We analyzed every aspect of the customer flow and of course the failure. And you know what? We got our systems back live within a few hours and we ended up rebuilding our entire system to be 10 times more resilient. That outage, yes, it was painful, but it made us better engineers. So how do you make embracing failure a habit? Firstly, you want to change your perspective on failure. View it not as a setback, but as a learning opportunity. Every failure is a chance to improve and grow. Secondly, you want to implement blameless post-mortems. When something goes wrong, focus on what happened, not who's at fault. The goal is to learn and improve, not to punish or point fingers. Then you want to make a habit of documenting your failures and keep a failure log where you write down what went wrong, why it happened, and what you've learned. And over time, this becomes a valuable resource for future references and learning. In the cloud, failure is not just possible. It's inevitable. Hardware will fail, networks will go down, apps will get hacked, data gets leaked, and sometimes even entire regions can experience outages. The key is not to avoid failure, but to learn from it and build more resilient systems. Like Michael Jordan taking those 9,000 missed shots, each failure is just preparation for your next big win. All right, that brings us to the most crucial habit of highly successful cloud engineers. Can you guess what it is? Well, it's relentless execution. Look, if there's one habit that you need to take away from this video, let it be this one. Not just in cloud engineering, but you can apply this to everything that you do, every course that you study, every workout that you do. Now, when I say Mamba mentality, some of you watching already know what I'm talking about. So let me tell you about the late Kobe Bryant. Mamba mentality refers to a mindset of relentless pursuit of your goals. Now, Kobe Bryant wasn't just extremely talented. He was obsessed with execution. His work ethic was legendary, and nobody understood this better than those who witnessed it firsthand. Jay Williams, a former NBA player, shared a story that will blow your mind. It was during the 2008 Olympics. Team USA was in Vegas for a training camp. Jay Williams was curious about Kobe's infamous work ethic and decided to hit the gym early one morning. He got there at 3:30 a.m. He probably thought he was the only one putting in the work, but guess who was there already? Kobe Bryant, of course. Kobe wasn't just shooting around either. He was drenched in sweat, like he's been there for hours. And get this, he kept going until about 11 a.m. when practice started. That's nearly 8 hours of training before the actual team began to practice. Williams was stunned. He asked Kobe, why are you doing this? Kobe's response, well, I'm doing it because I know my competitors aren't. And I want you to picture that at this point in Kobe's career. He was the reigning league MVP in 2008. For those of you who don't understand, let's just say he was arguably the best basketball player in the world at that point. But that didn't make him lazy. He was still training just as hard, putting up just as many shots as if he was still a beginner. That's the Mamba mentality. That's relentless execution. Now, you might be thinking, what's this got to do with cloud engineering? Everything. In our world, ideas are worthless without executing. And it's a common mistake that beginner cloud engineers make. They spend more time planning and thinking about the project they're going to build than actually building the project. Now remember, in cloud engineering, your execution is what sets you apart. It's not just about having great ideas or knowing the latest technologies. It's about consistently delivering high quality work day in, day out, and continuous learning. So execution actually fits in with all the other habits that I discussed so far. Now, as I wrap up, I've covered so much in this video, and it's important to remember that if you're feeling overwhelmed, that is okay. It's a natural part of the journey to becoming a highly successful cloud engineer. It's a sign that you're pushing your boundaries and you're striving to improve, and that's a great place to be. Now, success in cloud engineering, like in any field, doesn't come from luck or genius that you're born with. It comes from consistent effort, continuous learning, and the commitment to excellence. I've walked this path myself. I faced the challenges, doubted my abilities, and questioned my progress. But I've also experienced the immense satisfaction that comes from solving complex problems, seeing my skills evolve, and knowing that my work makes a difference. And trust me, where I am today, when I look back, yes, the view is great from up here, but the journey is absolutely worth it. In cloud engineering, your growth is only limited by your dedication and your willingness to learn. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.